there will be more people joining us, and that is fine. So why don't we go ahead and begin? First off, let me let you know that we will be recording this webinar to post on our YouTube channel for people who are unable to attend. If you haven't, please check out the Family Focus Resource Center YouTube channel and please subscribe. We've been having all our webinars and workshops recorded on there and placed, so you can use that as a resource for later. Let me introduce myself as well. First, my name is Diana Shulock, and I am the program manager at Family Focus Resource Center, and I work at our CSUN office, Cal State University Northridge. Many of you are familiar with us, or with our office, and we do have 3 other offices located in regional centers throughout the North Los Angeles County Regional Center catchment area. So that would include Chatsworth, Santa Clarita Valley, and Antelope Valley. So we will be sharing our website in the chat, so you could have access to those phone numbers in case you do need to reach us after. We are having many different workshops coming up this fall, so please make sure you go to our website as well and register for our newsletter, so you always stay up to date with the upcoming workshops and support groups that we have for the rest of the year. Today we have with us my coworker and director of Family Focus Resource Center, Victoria Berry. And we have hosting today, we have Cynthia Alfaro, who is from Advanced Behavioral Pathways. And thank you so much, Cynthia, today for presenting this and having these amazing slides that I've taken a look at and just look fabulous. So we're very excited for this workshop. Thank you again, and let's get started.
Thank you so much for that introduction. So like Diana said, I am Cynthia Alfaro. I am a board certified behavior analyst, and I'm so excited to be doing this. CSUN is my alma mater, so I am so happy to be presenting today. So let's get started. My presentation today is about preparing for back to school. I know there are some districts that I help and that I am contracted with who start school on the 8th and some that start school on the 11th. So it's coming up pretty quickly. Oh, give me 1 second. There we go. So back to school in 2022. So we will be discussing, hold on, give me 1 second here.
Cynthia, while you do that, I did forget to mention questions. We do have a Q&A feature on the webinar, so you can type your questions in there, but there will also be periods throughout the presentation where Cynthia will be taking questions, and it'll be open for discussion. So if you do have a question that you would like to ask personally, you can always raise your hand and we can unmute you. So you can ask that directly, or again, you can use the Q&A feature.
Thank you. Okay, so back to school in 2022. So in this presentation, we'll be discussing preparing for back to school, sharing information to school, school organization, and helping your child once school actually starts. So one thing that I always recommend to the parents that I work with is, knowing your child better than anyone, but really getting to know, what they're going to need at the start of school. So some students may need more preparation than others. Some may be stressed by the preparation. So using some techniques, some coping strategies, or maybe some in behavior analysis, because that is the science that I provide and that I practice, using cues and priming and letting your child know, like, we're going to start school in a day, we're going to start school in a week, just so that they can ease into that. And then providing your student with what they need to be successful. Okay, so whether that might be going to bed a little bit earlier, or maybe a specific type of writing utensil that, might make them feel more comfortable, specific snacks, things like that. So knowing what your child and your student is going to need for that transition back. Now preparing for back to school. So, and sorry if you hear any sirens, there is a fire nearby. So my apologies if you hear anything in the background. So talk to your child about going back to school. A really, really helpful tool for anyone is really priming ourselves. Like if I have a really big presentation, I tell myself, okay, I am going to have this presentation and it's going to be in 5 hours, and making sure that I talk to somebody about that. My boss talks to me about that. So definitely talk to your child about what that transition is going to look like. You'll want to also begin a more school-like routine. A lot of the parents that I speak to, it's summer, sometimes the bedtime is later, waking up is later. And so really preparing them for that school-like structure and routine, incorporating some snack times simultaneously with, playtime or recess time, and then also incorporating lunch breaks into their day. Another helpful tool might be to drive by the school. I know that whenever I have a big meeting somewhere I haven't been, especially if it's a new school, I like to take my sister and we'll get in my car and we'll drive to the place, just so that I know exactly what the building looks like, where I can park, where it might be helpful to show your child where the drop-off is and also where the pickup is. And then maybe setting up a meeting with a peer or a play date, so that they have a familiar face for when they start school. This information might be a little bit to come by, but if you're in a community, you can set something up with another parent so that your child has a friendly face when starting school. Okay. Next, so preparing, continuing on. So fill out all forms that may be needed. This could be emergency forms, transportation, medication, take medication to the nurse's office. There have been times where some of my students, unfortunately, for whatever reason, right? Sometimes things happen and we're not able to communicate things because, school is such a hectic time when it starts. And I have had students who might have needed some medication or might have needed an inhaler. And unfortunately, sometimes we're not able to prepare efficiently. So preparing ahead of time before the first day of school will really be essential, especially if your child does need that medication every day at a certain time. It'll be really helpful to contact the nurse's office so that they have that handy. Also completing perhaps a one-page profile of your child for your student. So the teacher can get to know your student a little bit better, your child a little bit better, what they like, what they don't like. Sometimes, our students need a little bit more motivation. Sometimes our students find certain things aversive. Maybe there's a sensory need that needs to be met. And so filling out a form or a profile for your child or student might be a really good idea to give for your teacher. And going to back to school night. This is, I'm sure it's really fun. I haven't gone to one in a really long time, but I'm sure they're still really fun and you get to know what the classroom looks like. You're able to speak to the teacher. You might be able to meet other parents and then set up play dates that way. So definitely going to back to school night would be helpful as well. And this is a sample of a page or profile that you can fill out for your child or the student. You put strengths, some challenges that they might have. Like I mentioned, if they have some sensory needs, or if, you can add that really loud noises might be a little bit aversive for them, or they might struggle with, sitting in a chair for prolonged periods of time, things like that. The important people in your child's life. Definitely will want to fill out the things that I like, because then that will help the teacher build rapport with your child, and will help them really tap into that motivation and seeing like, okay, Timmy might really, really like cars, or Timmy might really, really just like to take a break every once in a while, things like that. And then best ways to support your student. And again, this could be, my child needs a snack before designated snack time, or my child might need to stand up periodically, throughout the school day, maybe take a break outside. So that will really help the teacher be better prepared for your child's needs, and also will help them build rapport with your child to be more successful. Alrighty, so I know that was quite a bit of information. So I set up these slides, like was mentioned earlier, to give us some time to discuss anything that I already went through before. So please, if you have any questions so far, please let us know. And then I'll keep this up for about a minute or so. If no one has any questions, then I'll just keep going. Okay, I think we're good. Alrighty, so here are some preparation activities. Like I said, driving by the school, just having, some of us are visual learners, or, visual input really helps us. And so driving by the school, especially if it's a brand new school that, your child or the student hasn't been to before, it would be really, really helpful to look and drive by the school, or if the school is really far, maybe looking up images on Google. Again, to prime and to prepare, and so that they have a visual of where they're going. Point out different parts of the campus, like drop off and the office. It also would be really helpful, again, like I mentioned before, showing drop off areas, pickup areas, maybe showing where the nurse's office is when, they feel sick, or depending on the age level of your student or your child, if they're going to be going from one period to the next, showing them, hopefully on a map, if you're able to obtain that, where each classroom they will be in. I know when 11 years ago, when I was still in school, I definitely would have benefited from having a map and looking where each of my classes were going to be. So showing them those designated drop-off areas, pickup areas, the nurse's office, the lunchroom, things like that would really be helpful. And also talk about expectations. Talk about what the expectation is for pickup, for drop-off, for how you would expect them to conduct themselves at school. So all of these things, like I mentioned, a really, really helpful tool in everyday life, and something that we practice very frequently in behavior analysis, is priming, giving those disengagement warnings, or giving those cues, and letting them know, like, okay, here's where this is where you can find this resource, this is what this area looks like, and it'll definitely put your student at ease. Let's talk about back to school shopping. Definitely want to have a backpack and a lunchbox. I know I always, always, always loved going back to school shopping. Even now with my career, I still go back to school shopping, even though it's not school. But I pick up a new planner, or I'll pick up some new notebooks and pencils and pens, so that I'm better prepared for my job duties. Homework materials. So it would be really beneficial if there's a way to know if your student is going to have homework at the start, or just, things that they will need for homework. So scissors, erasers, glue. For school, definitely only have them bring supplies that were requested by the school, because there are often times where students will bring items that are distracting, and there are some times where you will send your child with something that's comforting, and those things would be okay, but as long as they're not going to be too distracting. So limiting and the amount of items that they take with them, so they're also not overwhelmed. And then it looks like there might be a question. Yes, some teachers do assign homework and some don't. So it's really good to know what materials they'll need and things like that. And talking about schedules, like I mentioned earlier, a really great way to prepare for back to school is using that schedule and that very structured type of environment at home. So like I said, getting up earlier, if possible, eating breakfast, getting that routine of, brushing teeth, getting dressed, eating breakfast, whichever order, you and your family do that. And then doing activities in the morning, and then embedding those breaks in between. So whenever recess time will be, embed that time in there, and then some other activities, and then lunchtime, so that your student gets comfortable and is able to adapt to that schedule. Yes, I like that. Sorry, let me go back a slide if I can. No. Okay, let me see. So I can just talk a little bit more about it. So definitely getting the structure back, preparing different snacks and meals to see what your student might like to take to school, talking about classroom rules with them, what is going to be expected of them. There are going to be periods of time where they have to sit for prolonged periods, talking to them about how they're going to need to raise their hand to go to the restroom. Providing them with examples of rules that are going to be in the classroom will also prepare them for that environment. Talking about school materials, so get the school materials ready to help them get excited about going back. Like I said, I absolutely love shopping for new pens and a new backpack, new notebooks, things like that, to also motivate them and show them, hey, look, you have this really cool notebook and you can show all your friends when you get to school. And look, you have all these pens that you can use, or maybe they have a really cute backpack that they take with them. So things to get them excited for when they're going to go to school. Maybe a special snack that they can take for school specifically. This is also something motivating that you can implement, and make that little deal with them, like, hey, you can have maybe an extra bag of Oreos for snack at school. And then Oreos might be one of the things that they don't usually get throughout their day, but at school is something that they get, and it will make them excited to go even more, right? Allow your child to pick out items, either online or in the store. Again, tapping into their likes and their interests and things that they find exciting and motivated. That will really, really, really help with getting them excited, because it's different if your parent buys you the same standard black and blue notebooks, right? But if your child picks out something maybe with sunflowers on it, depending on the age appropriateness or age range, all of those things will really help them become more excited. And if you do have older school supplies, freshening those up. So maybe buying a new pair of scissors, maybe the scissors have gone dull, or maybe the pencils haven't been sharpened in a really long time. Maybe we need new erasers. So freshening those things up. Ooh, I like this one. So making a homework toolbox with all the supplies needed. Again, some teachers might assign homework at the beginning, some might not, but really taking that into account and maybe making them a homework toolbox. And so they're looking forward to having something tangible that is going to help them with their classwork and their homework, I think is also a really great idea, because they have like a little station, they have a little toolbox that they can tap into for when they do get homework. Creating a homework area is also really beneficial if possible. I know that sometimes that's not always possible, but having a quiet area with minimal distractions, maybe depending on what type of learner you have, with visuals in the homework area, maybe some soothing music in the back, just really depends what your student or what your child needs. Also, making an after school schedule is really beneficial. You'll hear a lot of, schedule and structure, and this is because we all thrive off of schedules and structure. Some of us who are, I can't speak of this for myself because I do need a lot of structure and a lot of schedules. There are some that don't need it, but I do think that a lot of us thrive off of schedules. If I didn't have all of my appointments, in front of me and written down, I definitely would not be as productive. And sometimes I have to schedule in a 15-minute break, or otherwise I won't take it. So definitely making an after school schedule for your child or your student, scheduling in snacks, scheduling in a time for a break, maybe scheduling in a time for fun. I know nowadays a lot of our students have homework that I don't even think I had when I was at school. There's a lot of more material and a lot more things to learn. And so making sure that those rest breaks are in there, having a snack, making time for homework, and also wind down time, right? As they're getting ready and getting into school, especially those first few weeks, are an adjustment. And so having that consistent bedtime routine and maybe finding a wind down activity, whether that be reading or listening to soothing music, whatever your child likes, right? I would also encourage your student to choose the wind down activity that they want to engage in. So then they're ready to go to bed, and then hopefully having that more consistent bedtime routine. That routine also can consist of not only the wind down, but also, the brushing of the teeth. I know sometimes in summer, we're very, very lax sometimes, or we're more flexible, right? Because the next day is fun, it's summer fun, or there's camp. And sometimes we don't always have our students do, all of the steps in a routine that we would like to see when school is in session. So establishing that consistent routine is going to be key and very, very helpful. behavioral expectations. I know I spoke about this already a little bit, but it's also helpful to review behavioral expectations for the school, whether this be using a uniform, wearing a uniform, or however, what the protocol is to go to the restroom, right? I know there are some schools where students can just get up and go to the restroom. There are other schools where students have to ask for permission. There are other schools where you need a slip. Certain teachers require a key. It really just depends what the expectations are. Again, like I mentioned, raising your hand to speak. We usually see that in many classrooms. Explaining to them that following directions and sitting quietly is a pretty big expectation for school. It might not be, sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's a very big expectation for school to follow directions and sit quietly. And it might not be something that they're used to, right? It's summer, sometimes we're out of practice in that. And so we want to make sure that they understand that when they go back to school, they will have to, sit and listen and do their work. Maybe let them know that it is possible for them to ask for a break, to advocate for themselves depending on what they need is also important. And practice following those behavioral expectations, right? So you can begin practicing them during different parts of the day. I know it's a little bit bizarre to have your child in your home raise their hand and ask to go to the restroom, but maybe before they go to the restroom or after they're out of the restroom, going over with them like, hey, I'm so happy that you went to the restroom. Can you tell me in school what that would look like? I know here at home, you're able to just get up and go, but how would that look like in school? Let's practice what that would look like, or just remind me of what I would have to do if I was in school. Give them praise and point out when they're following a rule. So if they do, for example, sit for a really long time, making sure that you do give them praise for that and say, hey, I loved how you were able to sit and do that puzzle for 30 minutes. Or I love how you went and you got yourself a snack and you sat down and you ate it and then you went to go play. And maybe reversing the roles, right? Maybe having you as the parent model that behavior so that they can see how it's done. So having that model and also make it fun. You could say like, hey, this is what I would do when I was in school, and model those behavioral expectations and tell them that you also went through it and that school can be fun. And maybe role playing and those types of things. All righty, here's the next slide. If anyone has any questions or any comments too, it doesn't only have to be questions. Definitely let us know, and I will keep that up for about a minute or so.
I'm loving these tips, Cynthia, and I think a lot of them even still apply for older kids in middle school and high school. I mean, maybe not, taking them to buy the erasers and the colored pencils, but definitely letting them know the expectations and reminding them about school rules. We definitely want our kids to behave in some of the older grades, and when behaviors sometimes, can get a little bit more difficult, but really setting up those expectations is super helpful.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think also sharing with them, what your experience might have been like in school and what your behavioral expectations were at school. I think that also helps them feel like, okay, my parent isn't just telling me this because they want to tell me what to do, but it is a true thing that I have to, I'm expected to behave this way. It looks like There is something in the chat.
Yeah, we have a question.
Yes. I don't know if this is coming up, but yes, Candace, it would definitely be appropriate. Back to school night about
I know sometimes at back to school nights, they're really crunched for time. But maybe it would be a good time to maybe ask to set up an appointment.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Yes, I agree, Candace. Maybe not going through every single accommodation in the IEP, but perhaps asking them if they've read it, and then setting up a specific time to go over it with them at another time outside of that back to school.
But it is a great time to introduce yourself and let them know that you're there to help, or if they have any questions about your child, to definitely reach out to you.
Exactly. Thank you for that question, Candace. Is that the only question you see?
There's another one in the Q&A. It says, will you be providing tips for students attending virtual learning?
Ooh, not in this presentation. But I can, at the end, if we do have time, I can give some tips and tricks, but no, unfortunately, I didn't add virtual learning to this presentation. But a lot of, some of these tips also do apply to virtual learning. I know it is very different. But if you have any questions, you can also take down my email, and I would be happy to answer any questions that way. Or Diana, is there another resource that we can?
Yeah, Victoria just posted, we do have, when we were in distance learning, we did have a workshop specifically about that. So we did record that, and it will be on our YouTube channel. I believe Victoria is searching for it and she'll post the link. But yeah, I think a lot of these same tips that you're talking about apply. Obviously, you don't need to drive by your computer beforehand, but definitely the expectation, you still need to behave online. I mean, I think we all saw, in those 2 years, we all really got an eye-opening look at our kids' behavior at school. Sometimes not so great, but they still need to be respectful and be polite and listen and have their screens on, and definitely go over those expectations that you would. And I mean, I think it's the same thing as you would expect your kids to be to you. You want them to be respectful to their teacher.
Right.
So I think that still applies to distance and virtual learning, definitely. And I think, we all had different tips that we spoke about probably on that workshop. And, like I would do a daily list of what they needed to get done. So we'd check off, and that included stuff to do on their breaks, because I didn't want them moving from one device to another. So I would have them walk around the cul-de-sac, stuff just to get them moving.
Right.
And get some air and get away from a screen.
Yeah.
I think I even bought little weights, like little 2-pound weights, and I would make them walk around our pool for 15 minutes. So yeah, I would definitely try to get them away from the screen during those breaks.
As much as you can, yeah.
As much as we can.
Yeah, I agree. I love all of those tips, Diana. And it looks like Vicky did.
Yeah, she posted the YouTubes on there. So yeah, definitely take a look at that.
Perfect. Thank you. Alrighty. Any other questions? If not, I will continue. Okay. So I knew this was coming up. So the first week of school, maybe not you could during back to school night, but the expectation, and we're not perfect, but the expectation is hopefully that the teacher will already be aware of the IEP. This isn't always the case. They probably have so many students that they're keeping track of. In a perfect world, the teacher would know every single student's IEP and all of the accommodations, but sometimes it's not possible. And so I do encourage giving the teacher a copy of the accommodations page of the IEP, scheduling a meeting with them if you feel that that's necessary, for them to know exactly what those accommodations are. Send the IEP team your current contact information, just in case there are assessments that need to be done, or maybe some follow-up questions that the IEP team needs to check in on. And also share your child's behavior plan, or other individualized information. Again, in a perfect world, the teacher will have every single ounce of information. Sometimes it is impossible. So definitely letting them know, hey, my child has a BIP, a behavior plan, or my child has a behavior support plan, or my child doesn't have a BIP, but they do have these accommodations in their IEP. And then if you do need to talk about that further, I do encourage scheduling some time with them, just to review that and go over that with them. So I do encourage talking to the teacher about it, if that's possible, providing them with a copy of it if that's possible, and just making sure that they are aware that these items are in place for your child. Again, the homework, find out if your child will get homework. Again, some teachers assign it the first week of school, some don't. And then signing up for school announcements. I know that we live in a world where we have constant notifications all of the time, but definitely signing up for school announcements. So you can also prep your child for things that are coming up in advance. So you aren't caught off guard, but definitely so they aren't caught off guard. And you can start to prepare them for those changes in schedule, or maybe an assembly, or something that might be different in their day-to-day routine at school. And I also would encourage you to meet other parents from your child's class. Exchange contact info, not only for play dates, but I can't emphasize how important community is. And sometimes it really, really helps to have somebody else there to support, or to hear you out, or to maybe exchange ideas with. Those things are very, very helpful to have somebody who is experiencing something similar, that you are as well. Yes, building a community is very, 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 very helpful. I know, as the saying goes, it takes a village. It definitely does, not only for your child, but also for you. We also need that preparation for ourselves and people to lean on. I would also put all dates on your calendar. I am a big, big, big believer in visuals. I think visuals are key to learning. And I encourage a lot of the parents that I work with to do like a master calendar, and put, certain specific dates on there, put doctor's appointments on there, those holidays, those breaks, for you, those IP dates. So you can keep track of all of that, and you just have it there in front of you, as a cue, right? As a prompt, so that you're staying on top of it, you're being organized, not only for your child, but also for you. And then also join, if your school has a parent organization, that also is helpful. Again, building that community, talking to other parents, and finding the best way to communicate with your child's teacher. I know that every time I meet a new parent of a new client or a new student, or I'm starting an assessment, I always ask my parent, what is the best way to reach you? Do you take phone calls better? Do you check your email consistently? Do you prefer a text message? Whatever that style of the teacher is, that's the it's really good to know so that if there is an emergency, or maybe you notice something that you want to talk to them about, maybe you want to discuss the IEP accommodations, finding out the best way for them to communicate, and also letting them know what the best way for you to communicate is, right? Because I'm sure everybody checks their email all the time and is very, very good about it. But let's just say you don't check your email every single day or every hour like I do, which I do not recommend. You know, maybe a text message would be better, or maybe a phone call would be better, or maybe I know a lot of schools have those apps now, I think, where you can communicate through there. Maybe that app is better to communicate through it. It really depends, but knowing what their style is and the best way to reach them is going to be very, very helpful for you and your student and child. Visual supports, I love them. Make a calendar and begin checking off the days until school starts. Again, that priming, if you haven't done so yet, I would recommend pulling up the calendar and showing your child, you know, hey, Timmy, tomorrow is the 5th and you start school on the 8th. It says however many days you have left of school, and hey, Timmy, how about you start checking off the dates? You know, maybe having them go off and check them off so that they know exactly how many days are left until school starts. Create a list of reminders for your child. So reminding them, you know, make sure to get your backpack ready. Make sure to pick out your outfit for your first day of school. Definitely makes it very exciting if they're into that, right? They might not care, but or maybe their favorite pair of shoes that they can wear to school. Making them a list so that they're prepared for what's coming. And then review it throughout the week until school starts. So, hey, hey, Sally, I was trying to think of another name. Let's look at your list of the things that you need for school. You're going to need your backpack. You're going to need some pencils. You're going to need your Chromebook if you know your child is at a school that provides those, or your iPad, you know, depending on if that's something that your child or student uses. So going through that maybe every other day leading up to the first day of school, maybe starting to increase the days that you go over that with them. And like I said, encouraging them to check off the dates so that they are better prepared and they can see it's coming. Some students might find that a little nerve-wracking, but it all depends on what their style is, right? They might want to do it every other day. They might not want to do it at all. Maybe they just want you to tell them. It really depends, but I find that a visual support really helps with them anticipating when the first day of school is, what's coming next, and then that list so they can know what they're going to need for that first day of school. Oh, the unknowns. Don't we all just love changes and things that come up during our day that weren't planned? Just as much as we don't like them, you know, our students and our children also don't like it. So changes and unknowns. It would be helpful to go through it with them. One example that I like to give is maybe one day there's going to be a fire drill, right? We don't know. Sometimes they don't tell us when a fire drill is going to happen. So priming them of what that would look like. You know, you don't know when it's going to happen, but this is what it looks like so that when it does happen, there's less likely to be panic from it. Tell your student what to do and what you do know, right? So if you do know that there is going to be a fire drill, for whatever reason they tell you that, tell your student that. Of course, if it's going to be helpful, let them know so that they can see it coming. Let them know that you do not know the answers to all the questions, right? You might not know everything. And most of the time, the beginning of school is chaos. This is why we're here, right? We're trying to get tips to make the transition a little bit smoother. However, there are times where we might not know all of the information, and that is okay. Reminding your child that that is okay, and that unfortunately you are mom, dad, or mom or dad, you are a superhero, but you don't know everything. So also letting them know that, and assure them that you will be there to support as you both work through the school year. This is as exciting and as challenging for them as it is for you, and vice versa. You know, the challenges might be different, but letting them know that you're there to support them through the changes, through that, you know, period where you have to adapt and you have to get used to, you know, getting up early, you know, trying to relate to them and saying, hey, you know, in summer, we all kind of got up late. Now mom has to get up really early with you. You know, I'm here to go through this with you together. And another one. If anyone has any questions, please let me know, or I will continue, or comments. Are there any questions about the IEPs at all?
I do the same thing, Cynthia. I do provide a page from the accommodations with an introductory email so that they have my email and know how to contact me. And that way we can just communicate via email.
Perfect. Yeah. I think that's essential.
It's a great tip because, yeah, they get a stack of IEPs that are each 40 pages. There's no way.
There's no way. In a perfect world, right? But it's not where we live.
No.
Okay. I will continue. I don't think we have very much left. Okay, so in the field of behavior analysis, we are definitely shifting our practices to show a more compassionate way of doing things, a more compassionate lens. And so one thing that I would encourage, and it's easier said than done, is to show compassion for your child, your children, your student. Allow them to feel, allow them to vent. You know, it's hard getting up in the morning really early. I am not a morning person. I understand how difficult it is. And then maybe if it's a new school or a new grade, I understand it's hard to make new friends. You know, it's scary, it's nerve-wracking. Providing a compassionate response, you know, Sally, you know, I know it's hard getting up in the morning, and I'm very, very proud of you. Thank you so much for letting me know that it's difficult for you. You know what? It's difficult for me too. Also modeling appropriate responding, validating, and then directing them to a more appropriate response. So, you know, again, none of us are perfect. We're human. You know, your child might wake up one day and say, oh, I hate school. I don't want to go to school. And, you know, I hate getting up early. And that is communicating a need there, right? Or maybe they just want to vent. And making sure that we are providing them with that compassion, but also letting them know, like, hey, I don't think you really hate school, but I can tell that you're frustrated. I know you don't think class is boring all day, but you know, sometimes there are boring times throughout the day. And knowing that we're all dealing with a lot and we might not be at our best all of the time, and that is okay. As parents, I know that there is a lot to deal with, and I admire every single one of you because it is no easy feat. And, you know, allowing for compassion to your children, your child, your student, but to yourself. And again, that is easier said than done. You know, we could go to a million workshops, a million webinars, and we still will not be perfect. And so allowing that compassion for others as well as for yourself. I really encourage that practice. And it is the job as parents and others who support students to provide support. Again, supporting with compassion. A lot of the behaviors sometimes that we see, it's very easy to say, you know, they're just being difficult, or, you know, the old way of thinking of they're just having a bad day, or they're a bad kid, or whatever, you know, people say sometimes. And the new way of thinking is, well, why are they having a bad day? You know, why is this moment difficult for them? It's not that they are a difficult child, it's that they're having a difficult time. And how can we support them with compassion? Because there is, you know, if they're having a particularly difficult moment or day, figuring out what it is that they're needing in that moment, figuring out how we can best support them, right? So always leading with compassion as best as we can, and remembering that there are certain circumstances that are contributing to these behaviors that we are seeing. And I do have a question. You know, what do you need when you are facing a problem? I know for me, 50% of the time when I am irritable, it's because I haven't had a snack, or maybe because it's been 4 hours since I ate a meal. And so maybe having something to eat is going to help me, you know, carry on with my day in a better way. Maybe I just need to tell my colleague that the meeting I just had, or the assignment that I had, it's just very, very hard, and I just need somebody to listen to me. You know, think about what helps you in those moments, and how it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a bad parent. It's just in that moment, you need something. And, you know, how do you support yourself in those moments? What would you like others to help you with and support you with? And think about that for our students and our child. And sometimes kids just need understanding, you know, like, dang, you know, that day was really hard. My first day was really, really difficult. Or my first day, I didn't make a single friend. And you know what? I'm sorry, you know, that's tough, but showing them compassion in those moments, or maybe today I didn't answer all the questions right on my little quiz, or maybe I got a problem wrong. And that might elicit a certain reaction that we weren't expecting, but understanding that they're going through something and that they just need some validation and compassion. And then parent preparation, which is a good segue. I think about what changes are needed once the school routine starts. Again, maybe an earlier bedtime, maybe limiting the amount of screen time that they, you know, before bed, things like that. How can things be made easier? I know for a lot of my parents, packing lunches the day before is easier for them. Some parents, packing the morning of is easier for them. Maybe setting out the clothes, you know, your child's clothes at the beginning of the week, beginning of the day, the night before, really depends what style you thrive with. But thinking of things that are going to make it easier for you and for your child. And then what can you do ahead of time to prepare? Again, like Diana mentioned, maybe sending that email, you know, your child's teacher's name, finding their email, and sending the IEP and the accommodations beforehand to prepare. Possibly just sending an email without that and saying, hey, I am Timmy's mom. This is the way to reach me. Things like that to prepare ahead of time. And think, how can you support your child or your student? How can you best help them meet their needs, or advocate for them, or teach them how to advocate for themselves? Okay. And right on time, we have 4 minutes left. I wanted this slide to be for, I think the presentation is over. I think this is my last slide. Well, my second to last slide. So I open the floor in the next 2 minutes for anyone who has any questions, any comments. This is the time.
I was going to ask Cynthia, what do you recommend in dealing with kids having some social anxiety about making friends?
That's a good one. I always like to tell the parents that I work with to maybe find, there are a lot of resources on YouTube about how to make friends or social stories depending on the age level or the age group. Showing them, like, maybe relaying stories that can really resonate with your child, and telling them stories of when you had to make friends, or when you made friends, or how scary that was, and how scary it is for everyone to make friends. But I would try some social stories, maybe some role play. If you see somebody that might be wearing, I don't know, a Dragon Ball Z shirt, or a what's another, a Cars shirt, or another, or a band shirt that you like, how do you strike up a conversation? Giving them tips on how to start a conversation, and then role playing that with them, so that next time, hopefully that will generalize to the natural setting. And then just validating them and saying, hey, you know what, it's tough making friends, but you're a great kid, and you'll figure out that there are some good people out there, and try to strike up a conversation when you find something or someone in your class. But I think role playing and validating those fears and anxieties are powerful.
Oh, those are great tips.
And then I know some were posted also onto the chat.
Oh, that was just me to sign up for a newsletter, so you don't miss any more great workshops like this.
Awesome.
And we also have, talking about parents getting ready, we also have a lot of really great support groups that, where you can, chat with other parents who are all going through, similar things like this right about this time every year. I have that anxiety about my kid socializing. So that's why I was asking. And I know even in high school, when my son started as a freshman last year, luckily the teachers had their classrooms open. So even though he didn't know anyone, he could go there at lunch, and it was his classmates, and, start making some connections. And he had some place to go, which is always, like a fear. Is my child going to sit by themselves at lunch?
Yeah, that is a very valid fear. I'm happy you mentioned that, because also depending on their age group and the age, encouraging them to sign up for a club, or maybe, there are, being a little bit proactive, depending again on the age of seeking other parents, and then maybe setting up a play date again, so that they have a familiar face when they start school. That doesn't always happen, but that's also a tip.
Yeah, no, that's definitely important. And again, and that's why it's so important to set up your own community, with other parents, because sometimes you don't get all the information of stuff that's happening at school, and you can always, text or email another parent and say, hey, did you hear about, is this true? Are they really supposed to come in school tomorrow wearing,
Exactly.
all red? So it's good to have some other people that are going through the exact same thing that you're going through at that moment.
Exactly. Any other questions or comments or feedback?
Okay. Yes, well, thank you very much, Cynthia. It looks like nobody has any other questions. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Maybe you could do the same, Cynthia, in case anybody has any other questions that maybe they don't feel comfortable asking. That would be
definitely.
So my email is there in case anyone has any questions or follow up. Please feel free to contact me or Cynthia. Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing that. And again, definitely, if you need further support, all our support groups are starting back up this month in August. So please reach out and get, some other tips or help, or even if you just want to vent about how that transition back to school is going, because I know it's going to be difficult on all of us, not just the kids. I need to start going to sleep. I need to start going to sleep early too.
Sleep is essential, definitely.
Yes. All right.
Alrighty.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. We really appreciate it. Make sure to check out our newsletter about upcoming workshops. We thank Cynthia. We hope to have you back soon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.